Hi everyone, and welcome to our ICE assembly for this week. So this week we're going to be thinking about one word in particular, and that word is courage. I wonder what courage can look like.
What can courage look like? Courage can look like standing on stage to perform in front of hundreds of people, or having a difficult conversation with just one person. Courage can look like facing a fear that we have always had, or deciding to try something completely new to us. Courage can look like making a change in our character, and it can look like saying hello to someone when you're new to a new place. Courage can look like choosing to stand up for what you know is right, even if that means standing out from the crowd. Courage can look like lots of different things in lots of different situations. Where have you put courage into practice in your life?
Did you know that we can see lots of examples of courage in the Bible? We can see really big acts of courage, we can see gentle acts of courage, we can see people having the courage to try something new or to trust God when it's hard. There is perhaps one of the most famous stories in the Bible that's all about courage, and I thought that's the one that I'd share with you today. It's the story of David and Goliath. You might have heard of it. The story of a young man who, against all odds, stood against a giant, and we're going to see what happened to him.
Meet Saul. He is the king of Israel. He is very rich and powerful, and he has a problem. A giant problem. The Israelites and the Philistines were old enemies. They would face up to one another on the battlefield and fight. This had gone on for years and years. But this time was different. When the two armies faced one another, suddenly a soldier stepped out from the Philistine army. And he was tall, 3 meters tall. And he was big, really big. His name was Goliath, and he wanted a fight. "Choose someone to fight me one-on-one," he shouted. "If they win, all of my people will become your servants. But if I win, you will all serve me." All of Saul's army were terrified. Take on a giant? One-on-one? That's how you get squished. No one wanted to fight Goliath. This went on for 40 days. Each day, Goliath would stand and laugh at Saul's army. And each day, they would quake in fear. Meet David. He is the youngest son of his family. He's so young that when all of his brothers have gone to serve in Saul's army, he's off looking after the sheep in the field. One day his father sent him with some cheese for his brothers, and to check on how they were, and to bring news back. But while he was saying hello, he heard Goliath shout and laugh at Saul's army. "Who will challenge me? Is no one brave enough?" David saw everyone scared and run away. But David wasn't scared. He was angry. How dare this Philistine insult God's people? He asked his brothers if anyone would fight Goliath, and they got annoyed at him, thinking he only wanted to be there to watch the battle. But that wasn't true. David could see that no one was willing to fight Goliath, and so he would do it. When King Saul heard of David, he invited him to his tent. He looked him up and down. "You can't fight. You're just a boy." David replied, "I might be young, but I've been looking after my father's sheep. When a lion or a bear comes to take one of my sheep, I chase it and I fight to save them. The same God who saved me from the lion and the bear will save me from this Philistine." Saul said to David, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." And he got David to dress in his armour. He put a helmet on his head and gave him his big sword. but they were so big David couldn't walk around. "I can't go in this, my king. I'm not used to it," he said, and he took it off. Then he went down to the river and picked up 5 smooth stones for his sling. Then he went down the hill to face Goliath. Goliath took one look at David and burst out laughing. Was this who was challenging him? He could probably step on David and not notice it. "Am I a dog," he said, "that you come at me with a stick?" But as he was laughing, David cried out, "You come at me with a sword and 2 spears, but I come to you in the name of the Lord All-Powerful. Today he will hand you over to me. The battle is the Lord's." And he took out his sling, he put a stone in it, and threw. The stone hit Goliath right in between the eyes, and he fell to the ground, defeated. The whole Philistine army stopped for a moment, wide-eyed in terror, and then they turned and ran away.
At first glance, it might have seemed that David was being overconfident, and his claim to be able to take on a giant was just foolishness. A young boy taking on a huge giant? Surely he would be squished in an instant. It seems that David's family felt the same way. So did Saul. A young man going against a giant? That was unwise. He needed to be covered in armour to even stand a chance. I must admit, if it were me going against a giant, I don't think I'd be brave enough. But we can see in this story that David wasn't just full of confidence, he was full of courage. And that courage hadn't come from nowhere. His courage had come from experience. This wasn't the first time that David had faced down a foe. David was a shepherd. Every day in the fields he'd look after his father's sheep, and lots of wolves and bears would come and try and snack on them. And so David had experience of fighting off those wolves and those bears to keep his sheep safe. And in each of those moments he trusted God to help him, and he knew that God had got him through to keep him safe and his flock safe as well. When David saw Goliath, he saw the big challenge, of course, but he also saw his past, his experience of the times that God had kept him safe. David knew that God was with him, and he also knew that he had an amazing talent. He was really good at using a sling and a stone. He trusted in that experience, and look what happened. The giant was defeated, and all of David's friends and families were set free from the fear that had held them.
Looking back at our past can give us courage for the future. Have you ever faced down a challenge in your life that has helped you to grow in courage and experience? For example, if you have a big test coming up, you can look back at the practices that you have done to prepare, or another test that you have taken in the past. This may be the biggest challenge yet, but you've got through the tests in the past. You can do this next one too. Or meeting a new group of people. It can make some of us nervous to introduce ourselves to new people, but why not think about the smaller hellos that you've had before, when you've met someone and made a new friend? Looking back at that experience can help you to have courage to say hello in a new situation. There might be more people you're meeting, but you've made a friend before, and there are opportunities to make a new friend here too. For David, he had courage because he knew that God had been with him through everything before, helping him and giving him strength in tricky situations. Is there someone you know who's helped you in the past when you've had a challenge to face? Knowing that they are there to support you through can give you courage in the future as well. Christians today draw courage on our faith like David did. We read about the times that God helped him and many others in the Bible, and many of us have experienced God's help in our own lives, and that gives us courage to trust him to help us through the next challenge that we face, even if it's a bigger one than before. Christians have faith that God will always be with us. We can always pray and ask God to be with us in our challenges, to help us have courage like he helped David. You might want to ask God to help you too. If you would like to, you can join me in prayer now. Loving Father, thank you so much that you were with David in every challenge he faced. When he fought lions and when he fought Goliath, you were there helping him. Please give us courage when we face challenges as well. Please help us to look back on our experiences and to draw on that and to draw on your love to have courage for the future. Amen.